Good evening, welcome. We are continuing with Brachos. We're on Daf Hey Amid Aleph, which is 5a, the first of the very wide lines. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, the two dots. The line begins with Misinai. Excuse me. We're talking here obviously about saying Shema. And once we got into saying Shema, we had various different related concepts in regards to saying Shema at night before one goes to sleep. Not just the Shema of the evening, but also before a person goes to sleep, he should say Shema. We then got into the concept of overcoming the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, has to do, if a person says Shema before he goes to sleep, that helps. And we're going to see even more than that. It's not just for evil inclination, but it's for other forces that it protects us from them. Rabbi Yitzchak said, everyone that reads Shema on his bed, which means before he goes to sleep, he says the Shema, it's as if he's holding a sword that has a double-edged sword. It's sharp on both sides. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, the exalting or the praise, the greatness of Hashem is in their throats. The cherev pifiyes biyadam, and sharp, double sharp, meaning both sides are sharp, of the sword is in their hand. Now, it's explained elsewhere that when it comes to klipa and evil forces, and Chassidus, it tells us there's one that's up and there's one that's down. And the double edge takes care of both of those. But the expression and the pasuk that's used is that when a person says Shema, it gives him that koyach, that strength to eradicate or to protect himself from. This is a maimer of the Rebbe Rashab and Ayin Beis. This explains at length that you have klipa, impure forces, comes in two manners. One is they're very low down, and that's how they get their life source. And another one is they go very high, above the normal order called the shtalshalos. They go to makif, and they get certain life sources over there. It's two negative things. Klipa. Dal means that they have the tuma, like real impurity, and that one is from higher up. But either way, we're this double-edged sword eradicates them. Exactly. So the Gemara is going to say it's a nice pasuk, but like what Avner says, what's the connection to Shema? Okay, my mashma. What do you see from here? Amar Marzutra, B'Temer of Ashi. So they answer exactly your question. Marzutra and others say of Ashi says Mereisha Dinyana. We have to look at the beginning of this inyan, what we're talking about in the prior pasuk. The Chsiv, says Ya'ozu Chasidim b'Chaved. Chasidim, which means those that do more than the minimum requirement, are going to rejoice or be happy with honor. They're going to dance or rejoice, be happy on their beds. So because this pasuk that we just brought about holding the sword comes after this pasuk, which mentions beds, we're connecting the two. And right after that it says, so Mazut is explaining that this is how you have it. We're talking about going to sleep. We're talking about beds. Pasuk follows, it tells you if you do this before you go to sleep, you're protected. We mentioned Rabbi Yitzchak, so now we're going to say another teaching from Rabbi Yitzchak. Anyone that reads Shema on his bed, meaning before he goes to sleep, mazikin betelin heimenu, demons are nullified, they are separated from him. He has no concern about demons or evil forces because it says Shema. What's the pasuk that he brings? He brings a pasuk from Iyai, from Job, which says, "Shenemar uvnei reshef yagbiu uf ve'inuf elotayra." That the children of, or the powers of reshef, which represents demons, will lift them up and they'll fly away. Now the term uf, flying, can mean anything, but uf here, he says, in general, the word uf represents Torah. So if you say Shema, which is Torah, before you go to sleep, you're protected. I'm sorry, if you're Isaac, if you say Shema before you go to sleep, so then you're protected. No, there's two. First, that's number one. Then Rish Lakish is going to say Asik and Torah. I skipped a line as well. So anyone that says Shema, he brings this pasuk. Uf or Eif is only Torah. Shnemara Hisif Einecha Boi Ve'inenu. He lifts up his eyes in him and he's not there. Which refers Ve'in Reshef al Mazikin, and Mazikin only Reshef obviously means Mazikin. Shnemar Mizei Ra'av Uluchume Reshef Ve'ketef Miriri. And this pasuk also represents evil forces. These pasukim are here to prove that our reference from this pasuk actually means demons and actually means Torah. Uf means Torah, and it protects us. So from these two pasukim, he learns that someone that says Shema before he goes to sleep, he's sure that demons, evil forces, which generally their power is at night, are separate from this person. He's protected. Amr Shimon ben Lakish. Shimon ben Lakish taught us, Kol ha'isik v'Torah yisurim b'telin hemenu. Forget it about Shema before, B'delin, the Dalid. Yeah, B'delin. Besides what Rabbi Yitzchak said about Shema, Lakish has something else. Shimon ben Lakish. Anyone that's Isaac in Torah, not just at night, in general, if you're Isaac in Torah, so Yisurin, suffering, is separate from him. Shenemar, Uvnei Reshef Yagbiu Eif, Einei Fel Torah. He brings the same pasuk, which we brought before to protect us from demons, and he says, Einei Fel Torah. Shenemar, Hisev Einecha Boi Veinenu, Ve'in Reshef El Yisurin. And he learns that Reshef, which before we said it means Mazikin, demons, he says it means Torah. I'm sorry, it means Yisurin. It means suffering. Shenemar mizei ra'av uluchume reshef. And from this pasuk, he proves that it's a suffering that a person has. So if a person learns Torah, the schus, the merit of his learning, protects him from suffering. Omar le Rabbi Yochanan tells him, 1 second. You have this pasuk from Tanakh to tell you that if you learn Torah, you're protected from Yisurin. Every child, the little kids that are in Cheder, they're by their teacher learning basics, they know this concept, that if you learn Torah, it protects you. You don't need this pasuk and the reshef and what it means. It says in Chumash, in Shmais, that if you're going to listen to Hashem, you're going to do what's right in His eyes. You're going to listen to Hashem's commandments. You're going to keep kol chuk of all of His laws. Every disease that I've put upon you in Egypt, I'm not going to put upon you. So it's obvious, the whole pasuk, if you learn Torah. We know this already from Chumash. And every child knows that if you follow what Hashem says, you're protected. Ella, rather, what it means, anyone that could learn Torah, in other words, he has free time, he has the opportunity to do so, and he doesn't do it, Hashem brings upon him, God forbid, difficult or disgusting or pain, bad suffering, and the Echron makes him very disgusting. I was quiet, or I remained completely silent. I was quiet from the good, which means Torah, and in suffering way there was pain. The Ein Toiv Elo Torah. I was quiet from good, and there's only the true good is Torah. I have given you lekach toiv, which represents Torah. Don't forsake my Torah. Okay, so once we're talking about Shema, we're saying that even applies to Torah. Anyone that keeps Torah has it. But he says it's in addition to that. If chas v'shalom somebody didn't do what he was supposed to, he stopped learning Torah, the Torah could bring it back or take away his yisurim from him. Rabbi Zera said, "V'item Rabbi Chanina bar Papa, boyu come let's see, shalei k'midas HaKadosh Baruch Hu midas basar v'adam." The way of Hashem is not the way of the human. In other words, humans have certain characteristics, a certain nature, the way they react, the way they behave. By Hashem, it's very different. What's the context here? Midas basar v'adam, the behavior of a person, a human, a person sells something to his friend, really you want this, but you need the money. So you sold it to your friend. The seller is sad. Now he lost it. He needed the money. So he sold his object. The buy, that he's happy to get rid of it? That's only if there's payments on it.
I never understood this. I mean, the economic exchange is supposed to be, it's okay with both of them. Neither of them is sad.
The person is only selling it because he needs the funds. He has no choice. So he's selling something that he has. In the olden days, he needed bread, so he went and sold a piece of jewelry or something that he had for many years. So obviously he's doing it by his will. He's not forced, but he wants the money. But he has no choice. The buyer is happy to have it. That's by humans. By Hashem, it's not the way it works. Nasan lahem Torah. He gave them, meaning the Yidden the Torah to Yisrael. V'samach, and he was happy. He said, I gave you a good thing. Don't forsake it. Okay. We're getting to a next piece of Gemara is, I don't want to say it's controversial. It's not controversial. It is what it says, but it's very important to clarify something. I'm going to say the first two lines, and I want to share an important story which will help put it in perspective. Huh?
Thank you.
Because usually we try to stick just to what it says here. Omar Rava, Vitema Rav Chisda. Rava says, and other people say Rav Chisda said it. If a person sees sheyisurin ba'in alav, he has suffering that's coming upon him, things are not so good in life, yifashvesh b'maisav, he should inspect his deeds. What's going on? How am I behaving? What's happening? Shenemar, as it says, nachbesa derachenu v'nachkera, we will search our ways and inspect them. V'noshuva ad Hashem, and we're going to return to the Eibishter. What if a person is suffering and he looked around and he doesn't find anything in his life that needs improvement? Fishfesh v'loy matzah. Let's assume that he truly inspected and he didn't find something which is wrong, that he's doing wrong. Very good. Hitler b'tol Torah. He should depend it or blame it on not learning Torah. Praise is the person who relies on Hashem or Hashem helps him. And from your Torah, you'll learn. Okay, so step one is, I'm doing something wrong. Step two, he's not learning Torah. And if you depended it on Torah, and I don't see that I'm somehow being mevatel Torah. Although we say that no one is nitzel from this every day, people always do more. But apparently he's measuring and he's saying the amount of yisurin versus the lack of Torah. If that's the case, huh? Yes. So you don't even need the sefer. Hashem chastises him, or in our case, he gives him pain. So the Gemara is basically telling you like this: person suffers. We said before that if you learn Torah, suffering doesn't come to you, and if it came, it'll go away through learning Torah. So if a person is having problems, he should inspect his ways. Maybe there's areas that need improvement. If he doesn't find anything that needs improvement, then he's not learning Torah, or he's not learning enough Torah. If he does that and he realizes it's not the case, so then he should know that it's not a punishment. Rather, it's from Hashem loves him and he's doing this to him, which is a lot to say on that topic. But there was a Rebbe, I forget which Rebbe it was, hopefully it'll come to me soon. He once got very, very sick. He was so ill, and not a Chabad Rebbe, but he got very, very ill to the extent that his Hasidim thought it was over. He was like in a coma beyond for 3 days. And miraculously, he recovered. And obviously, after he had such a miraculous recovery, he made a big suda, and then praising Hashem and thanking Hashem. And in the middle of this suda, one of the Hasidim went over to him and said, tell us, what did you see when you were in that state of, what's the right word? Coma state? Yeah.
Comatose.
Yes. Comatose. What did you see? He got very serious and he said, I'll tell you that I came Lamaila, I came to Shamayim. He was between heaven and earth. And he went to find his father, the Rebbe who was the Rebbe before him. And he found where he was. And he went over to him and his father didn't recognize him. And he was very hurt by it. He's like, well, what's going on? Like he He said 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, he's trying to approach him. He told him, he said, I'm your son. You don't recognize me? He said, I don't recognize you. Tell me what you've done recently. Why are you here? So he said that recently somebody came to him to ask him, I think, for money. He needed money for some serious issue that he had in his life. I don't know if he was marrying off a child or something. He had a problem. He couldn't help him with the problem. I didn't have the money to help him. But I gave him some words of encouragement. I told him, you should know, the Gemara says, from a pasuk, as Asher Yahiv Hashem Yechiach. The one that Hashem loves, that's the one that he criticizes, so to speak. So he said, that's why I don't recognize you. Because that's how you learn it down here in this world. But in Shamayim, we learn it very differently. In Gan Eden, they understand this pasuk very different. Es Asher Yehav, the one that loves another Yid, Hashem Yechiach. He turns to Hashem and he says, Yechiach, he asks Hashem, how come this person is suffering? So instead of you telling the person, Hashem loves you, and that's why he's Mechiach you should be Mechiach Hashem. Because you love him and say, Hashem, why is this person suffering? And why does he have this problem? So we're learning it down here, but we will still want to bring the shots from Gan Eden that they look at it. If you have true Avos Yisrael, then you see someone suffering, you don't say, whatever. You ask Hashem, Mechiach Hashem, so to speak. I don't know. He wasn't about his student. He was the person that came to him for help. He was suffering from something.
Yeah, but he was in coma.
I don't know if that was a punishment for what he said. He was telling him he doesn't recognize him because he's not speaking his language. He says, we don't learn this. We don't look at that way. But on a practical level, though, it's a difference between yourself and others. If you see someone else suffering, you should not tell them, even tell yourself, they must have done something wrong. You should daven to Hashem and say, they don't deserve this suffering. If something's going on in your life that you want to be improved, you should try to find something that you could, and you say Hashem loves him, it's coming, it's Ava and so on, it's for your own good, it's out of love. Hashem's not hurting you, he's not punishing you. But the point is, when you see someone else, you shouldn't accept it. You should try to have it changed. Yeah. I mean, that's the true... Okay. Amar Rav Schera, Amar Rav Huna. Rav said in the name of Rav Schera, in the name of Rav Huna. Kol shakadosh baruch hu chafetz bei, madka bi yisurin. Anyone that Hashem wants, desires, Medaka, he crushes him, or he crushes him, he hits him, puts him down, squeezes him. I gave you 10 options. I gave you 10 options to how to teach it. Dikoin is depression, but it's Medakoi. Medakoi. We're trying to find the proper translation of Medakoi. He says he makes him sad or depressed. The real root of depressed is pushing down. Yeah.
Makes it difficult for you?
It's a lot more than difficult. It's okay. Medakoi b'Yisrael, Shenemar, as the pasuk says, "Hashem chafetz dikai hacheli." I would think even if they didn't accept it out of Ava, it's still the case. In order for this to actually be the case, a person has to accept it and say this is Yisura Mi'ava. In other words, he has to recognize it's coming from Hashem because Hashem loves me and so on. And the Gemara compares this to a korban asham, just like the korban has to be done knowingly. Similarly, this whatever this person is experiencing, and no one should experience it, he should focus and recognize that it's coming from the Eibishter. And if he does that, then it's a benefit. What's his reward if he accepts it? Yireh zera, he'll see his children. Yarich yamim, will have long life. Not only will he see his future, his offspring and he'll live long, but the learning that he learns is miskayim biyadei. It remains. Shenamar v'chevetz Hashem biyadei yatzliach. Okay, yitzlach. The reward when a person has a certain suffering about himself, not about other people, and he accepts it ba'ava, Hashem rewards this person very much. We said 3 different things: long life, seeing his children, or seeing children, long life, and his learning is miskayim biyodeh. Huh? What do you say? You don't forget it? You don't forget your learning? It's a very different type of reward. Long life, nachas from the kids, whatever that probably what it means is one thing, and remembering your learning is a yeah. Right. Pligi bar Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi, Rabbi Acha bar Chanina. Regarding this whole thing of Yisurin, there's a machlekes between Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi and Rabbi Acha bar Chanina. Chad amar ileim Yisurin shel Ava. These are the Yisurin shel Ava. Kol she'ein bahem bittul Torah. Anyone that doesn't have any bittul Torah, as we said before, Shneimar ashe yagev asher tesana yudkei u'mitiras chasalam denu. Because we have a pasuk that says, praise is the one that Hashem brings him suffering, and he learns from your Torah. So therefore it means that it's Yisurim of Ava. It means if he doesn't have bittul Torah. But if he does, then that's the reason for it. He says it's not about learning. Rather, if someone doesn't have bittul tefillah, if he doesn't have bittul tefillah and he has suffering in his life, then it's Yisurim of Ava. Another pasuk, David Melech says, benching Hashem, that he hasn't taken away my tefillah from me and his chesed from me, which means it goes together. So if a person has tefillah and he doesn't see Hashem's chesed, that means that it's a sort of from Ava. Oh, but Rashi first. Okay, let's just do one more thing here. Ava. So Rabbi Abba, the son of Rabbi Abba, said to him, this is what Rabbi Abba said in Rabbi Yechanan. These are both, whether it's because of lack of, despite Torah or despite Tefillah, they're both Yisurim of Ava. The one that Hashem loves, he's the one that he gives the issues. Not teach him, but teach us. There's 2, instead of pronouncing it, they'll teach him, it's teach us. It's a kavachemer from the way we learn in Chumash when it says shein v'ayin, ma shein v'ayin, shein echad me'yavarav shel adam, eved yetzi b'hen l'chedus, yisurin shel margin kol gufei shel alachas kam kama, then definitely he goes out of his problems. We're in the middle of a piece, which want to clarify something. What we learn from that is like this: just like a slave that's a slave to a master, and he loses one of his teeth or his eye as a result of what the master did, he goes free. Similarly, if a person has a physical suffering, it frees him from any type of punishment or any avedas that he has that has to be cleansed from. It does that to him. We'll try to do a recap when we continue. Do Rashi and we're in the middle of a piece. Mitzvah Hashem. Next week, next year.